guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing a topic video on top 10 90s kid shows. And I actually got this idea from another YouTuber who I saw their vlog, which is Katie Wilson, and I thought it was a good idea. And I do love the 90s. I love the 90s kid shows, regular 90s shows. I'm a big TV fan, so I definitely wanted to do this topic video. And next week I'm actually going to do worst 10 worst 90s kid shows. So that also is not a recommendation, but I'll have a recommendation this week for DarkAvengerINC and of course next week for DarkAvengerINC, and then get back to recommendations after I do these two topic videos. And guys, if you have any recommendations, just tell me in the comments below, and if I answer them, that means in a couple of weeks it'll either be on DarkAvengerINC or Comic Uno, because I double dose my topic videos. Usually on Comic Uno I have them on Fridays with my video reviews, comic book reviews, and on DarkAvengerINC I usually have them every Sunday. So again, if you have any recommendations, I'll definitely be back to recommendations after, not next week, but the week after. So definitely recommend some. I love your recommendations. But let's talk about my top 10 90s TV shows. Now, number 10 is actually a show that it's not a kid show, but I watched it as a kid, so I'm going to count it as this. And that is Seventh Heaven. Yeah, so, Seventh Heaven, I love this show for some reason. I remember as a kid, I used to watch it, and, I used to watch it with my family all the time. I love the drama of it, honestly. I just love that family. I loved all the characters, and, I remember there was a time, actually, I mean, it was a little, they did have adult situations for, like, I was like 7 watching this show, and probably younger than that. I just remember watching this show all the time. Remember my mom saying this, she watched it with me once, and she liked Seventh Heaven too, but I guess she didn't think about I was watching it. She's like, this is a little inappropriate. I don't think you should watch it. I was like, what? I love Seventh Heaven. But I ended up watching it anyways, and I remember falling out of it a little after, you know, it got a little repetitive. But then got back to it once the series ended and started to end, and then I heard there was another season coming. I was like, I'm kind of bored with this now, and I think everyone had that. But there's some good seasons. I remember like season 6 or 7. I really liked the Seventh Heaven. So that's a show I feel like that a lot of people would be surprised that I like. So that's a 90s show that I really liked. I think it had a good message, and I think it is just a really good show. It had some good drama, and I liked the characters. But number 9 is The Amanda Show. Yeah, honestly, with all of that, and I'm gonna mention all of that, I used to like it when I was a little, you know, kid, but now they have the 90s or all that, and I saw all that, and I was like, why did I like this? But with The Amanda Show, I watch it again, and I still like it. I remember all those episodes, and it still has that good humor, and I always liked Amanda Bynes, and now she went a little crazy, and I still don't even understand how she went crazy, but I always respect her as an actress, and I always felt like she was one of those child stars that actually had her head on straight. There's a few child stars that do that now, but yeah, she went a little crazy now, and I don't think anyone understands that. But she was a really good child actress, and I really liked the Amanda Show. I like that she had her own show, and I think Dan Snyder, I think it is, does all these kid shows, and he's a really good writer, and I think he did a good job with the Amanda Show, and I think the jokes were a little bit better, and the segments were a little bit better, and a little bit more nostalgic than all that. All that I felt like I'm a little embarrassed to watch now, like I watched that. I don't really laugh at the jokes, but Amanda Show, I feel like I still remember them, and I still laugh at them, and I think it aged well. It aged well enough. Next, number 8, is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Yeah, you guys know I'm a big Power Rangers fan. Actually, I was alive for my Morphin Power Rangers, but I was a little younger, and I remember watching, I think, probably not Time Force, Turbo, I think it was. It was either Time Force, it was the 4th season. I think Time Force was the 4th season. That was when I started watching when I was a little kid. But I went back to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I really liked that one. That's my favorite season. That's the nostalgic season. That is the season that everyone knows of. And that's the season I like the most. One of the seasons I like the most. It's the original. I love the cast. They actually had original stories, so that was interesting. They used film from Japan only for a little while because they ran out of film. And they actually had their own film after. So they made their own film. They didn't use Japanese footage the whole time, so that was interesting. They ran out, so it was interesting, and they had the movie and everything. So I did like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I think it was I think it was Turbo that I started watching when I was little, though. Number 7 is Sailor Moon. And this is a funny story, actually. I watched Sailor Moon when I was a kid. I remember watching it as a kid. I actually have VHSs, you know, I used to tape all those things with the VHS. You didn't have DVR back then. So I actually have tapes of Sailor Moon, you know, really the episode 1, episode 2, like on Cartoon Network and stuff. I used to watch it, and I think in like sophomore year, I think, I didn't remember the show, honestly. I saw tapes of it, and my brother's like, oh, you remember this show? I'm like, no, honestly, I don't. But then I started watching it again, and I was like, wow, I love this show. So, yeah, I actually watched it as a kid, but I didn't remember it until I actually watched the episode again. I'm like, oh, I remember it now. And obviously, there's evidence that I watched the show. I have tapes of it, VHSs, regular tapes of it that you could buy, and then I had the the recording ones that are usually blank. So I watched the show. I just did not remember it. And then I started watching again and watched pretty much the whole series. And my friend, you know, that did Comic Duo with me, really loves the series also. We'll see. And there's actually going to have a summer series, a reboot series, and we'll see how that goes. But big Sailor Moon fan. So that's a weird story with Sailor Moon. Next is Batman the Animated Series. And I feel like that's a series I didn't really, not respect, but I didn't understand totally when I was little. I think we all watched those type of series just to see the fight scenes and not really for the character development. But Batman the Animated Series had a wonderful story. And when I grew up, I understood that a little bit more once I rewatched it as a, you know, a teenager. And as an adult, I understood that, you know, more of the story, especially once I got into comic books more. So, I always loved Batman Animated Series. I remember I used to go to the Warner Brothers store a lot, and, I'll show you footage of it. I actually have a picture, a movable picture that I remember I wanted really badly when I was little, and, I never got it when I was little, and I was like, I remember this photo. I used to tell my parents all the time, I remember this photo, I never got it in Warner Brothers, and one Christmas I actually got it, and, I have it on, you know, in my room on the wall. I'll show you guys it. And then, you know, that's how I know when I was little. I used to love that series. I didn't, you know, totally understand the story. I respect the story more now, but I used to love that series. I was so fixated on that picture frame. So yeah, I used to love Batman the Animated Series when I was little, and it was one of my favorite shows.
Sorry to put you out. Houston, we have a problem.
So, and also one of my favorite shows now, though. And I think this is what this list really represents, is shows that I love now and really respect now, but I loved as a little kid also. So next is number 5, which is Sabrina the Teenage Witch. That's a show I also watched when I was really little. I watched it when it was still on air, especially the ending. I remember when the series was ending, I was so upset. I was like, the last episode's almost aired. It's a really good show. I think the high school years were a little, they weren't the greatest. I love the college years more. I like the relationship that Sabrina had with Harvey. I think it was a good comedy, a good show. It's so weird that Melissa Joan Hart is... Every generation, she kind of had her own show. You know, she had Clister Explains It All, Sabrina Teenage Witch, and now she has Melissa and Joey, which is not that popular, but at least she has a show for another generation. But I think that's cool. I'm glad that she kind of is in somewhat of a TV spotlight throughout the decades. But I really like Sabrina Teenage Witch. I think that's what she's one of the most... I mean, it's really a close race between Sabrina Teenage Witch and Clister Explains It All, but I think people know Melissa Joan Hart a little bit more because of Sabrina, but I think it's a race between popularity with Clarissa and Sabrina. But Sabrina Teenage Witch, it was good effects also for what it was. It was a good story. I really enjoyed it. The comedy was there, and good cast, so I liked it. Number 4 is the Powerpuff Girls, and This is an interesting story also. I didn't watch Powerpuff Girls, I think, I watched it when it originally was out, obviously, but I don't think I watched, like, the first season. I remember I was in kindergarten, and one of my teachers was like, oh, what's the Powerpuff Girls? And everyone was explaining it, and I didn't know what it was. So that night, I went on Cartoon Network because they were explaining, it was on at 8 o'clock, it's Powerpuff Girls. And I went on, and then me and my brother used to watch that every night before we went to bed. So that was Powerpuff Girls, and I didn't know it at first when it first was popular. I think it was like around the first season, and then I obviously continued watching it, and then I saw the movie in the movie theaters and everything. So I was a big Powerpuff Girls fan. I still am, and they're making a new series of that also, and I don't know what to expect with it, but we'll have to see. Next is number 3, which is Rugrats. Yeah, I was a Rugrats fan. I'm still a Rugrats fan. Lasted about 10 years. Again, that's another show. I think it was around the middle of the series that I watched it. I didn't really watch it from the beginning. But obviously they had repeats and it catched up with it. And because I think it came out like 1991. But I remember watching that show when I was really little. You know, that show, I remember when it was on air. I remember when the stupid All Grown Ups came out. Yeah, I watched that show when it was on air because it was on air for a really long time also. So I think a lot of generations liked Rugrats. So yeah, I loved how those writers got into kids' mind. That's what kids think about, you know, the imagination of kids. I think it's a wonderful thing, and that's what I like about Rugrats. It shows the imagination of kids and how wonderful it is, and those characters are iconic. And Angelica was horrible, and I think I like that too. It's like, how could that girl be such a spoiled brat? And then we had Susie, that was also kind of, you know, the good version of what we wanted Angelica to be. And then Tommy being the leader, Chucky being scared, and Phil and Lil being the twins. I'm actually a twin also, so that was kind of cool seeing that you could relate with that. And I'm a girl and boy twin, so we kind of related to those characters a little. So I just love that show. I think it's just really unique, and the writing is really good for a kid's show, and just for any show in general, honestly. Now, number 2 is Hey Arnold. I love this show. Again, another show that just has really good writing. It was really good for supporting characters. Honestly, they created I guess it was Brooklyn. They never actually stated it was Brooklyn, but you could tell it was Brooklyn. And my grandparents actually grew up in Brooklyn, so I actually watched that with my grandpa a lot. And he used to call me Football Head all the time because he loved that show. So it was nice. It was a bonding thing too, because I think people who older generation could like it also. And again, even though they never said it was Brooklyn, I think it was kind of nice that any generation could like it. And that shows how the writing was really well written. And like I was saying about the supporting characters, every episode was about another supporting character, and you grew with Sid and Gerald, and obviously with Helga, who had this crazy attraction to Arnold, and I just love that story. And I love the movie also, how it ended, and I saw that in the theaters also. I remember being really excited, and I was actually younger than 4th grade at that time, and I remember it's like, when am I going to be the age of Arnold? It's like, oh, I'm never going to be the age of Arnold, and obviously I'm older than Arnold now, but I never understood that when I was little. So, I thought that was really nice, and I love Hey Arnold. Again, it's the writing and the supporting characters and really creating the world, and having PS 118. You really knew that school, you knew that class, and even Mr. Simmons, you know, I love that show, and I can still watch it now and watch those repeats of those episodes and still enjoy it because the writing is that good. Now, number 1 is actually a show I did not watch when I was a kid and ended up watching when I was older, but it is a 90s show and one of my favorite shows, and it is Secret World of Alex Mack. I love that show. It's 4 seasons. I could watch that show over and over again. It's not on YouTube anymore, so I'm a little disappointed. So I had to see where I could find this show and actually watch this show. Hopefully they have DVDs or something. I think it's on iTunes also. But that show is amazing. I love the writing of the show. It showed that I think that show is very good to show that a girl could be a lead and girls and guys could like it, and I think I liked what it proved with that. You know, Clarissa was the same thing, and I think that's what Secret World Alex Mack proved, is that you could have a girl lead who has superpowers and people like it. And I think that I liked what that show proved, and I liked the attitude of Alex. She was a nice girl next door type of character, but she wasn't a mean character. She was like something that you wanted to be, and with the superpowers and with being the really nice person and not being, you know, she was, you know, she wasn't a popular person. She was kind of like Lizzie McGuire, I would say, where she was kind of in the middle. She wasn't like a geek where you always have those generic things like, oh, well, this is the popular character, this is the geek character, but you actually have this normal character that I think a lot of people could relate to, because there's times where you're not a geek, you're not, you know, popular, but there's that middle zone. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, because you weren't either. And I think that's why I really like Secret World of Alex Mack. I was a big fan of Lizzie McGuire. That was actually the first show. I know that's not a 90s show, but it reminded me of Lizzie McGuire a lot. That was the first show. Lizzie McGuire is actually the first show that I was a big fan of. And that was the first show I actually fanned about. But Secret World of Alex Mack, yes, that was a show that reminded me of Lizzie McGuire. I'm glad that they actually took the roots from that. Lizzie McGuire did. And Secret World of Alex Mack had powers and everything, but it wasn't a superhero show. It was a normal show. And I think it just did really well. The effects are actually pretty good for the 90s and a kid show. I'm glad I discovered that show, even though I wasn't a kid when I watched it. It was a really good show, and it was really good follow-up from Clarissa Explains It All. And I think it's one of the better kids shows, and I think anyone should really watch that, because I think it has a good lesson. And I think anyone can relate to it. So those are my top 10 90s shows. I know I talked a long time about it, but I love the 90s. I love those type of shows, and I definitely have a lot to talk about. Next week will be the worst 90s shows, and I have stories about that too. And I wanted to tell a little bit of stories about myself while I did this too, about watching these shows as a kid. But tell me in the comments below, watching these shows as a kid, what did you like as a kid maybe, and you don't like as much as an adult, and you feel kind of embarrassed? All that for me. It's like I loved it as a kid, but really don't like it now. Yeah, tell me in the comments below what your favorites are. Definitely, I'm sure you guys have some favorites. And this is Comic Uno. Hope you guys enjoy. There'll be another topic video on Dark Avenger Inc. this Sunday, and next week for Friday for Comic Uno. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.